I treat pedophiles. AMA. Based on your patients, when did they start developing pedophilic feelings? As mentioned above, since there is no cure, do any of patients go on to get married and have children? Most start developing pedophilic feelings in early adolescence. So about the ages of 11 to 14. Pretty much when everybody else starts developing their own sexual identity. From the people who have contacted us, about 39% are in some form of relationship and about 36% are the caregivers for one or more children. You say 36% are the caregivers for one or more children. Has there been any discussion or word about any potential sexual attraction to their own children? Yes, there has. It seems that somebody is more prone to abuse a child under his wing if it's not his biologically. So basically a stepfather is more prone to abuse than a biological father. It can happen though. Do you know any recovered pedophile? It depends on what you mean by recovered pedophile. If you mean a completely cured pedophile, then no. Pedophilia, while treatable, is not curable. If you mean somebody who has managed to stay away from offending and viewing child pornography, then yes. Thank you. Is there any drug used to treat them? Yes. If requested, we may enroll them in chemical castration therapy. Do you have any female patients? If so, does it present differently? Also, do you find most pedophiles have a gender preference for the children they are attracted to? In the past decade, only 17 women have contacted us. Only one was an actual pedophile. I never treated her. There are some pedophiles who like only boys, some who like only girls, and some who like both. Do you see any reoccurring themes, for lack of better term, in your patients? Like a majority had traumatic childhoods. A large number were sexually assaulted as a child as well. The vast majority of my patients all had happy childhoods and grew up in loving families. So no. I've read that a reoccurring pattern with pedophiles is head-brain trauma in early childhood. How true is it? In some cases it has been found yes. But those people might have already been genetically predispositioned to it. Who knows? Are any of sexual orientations that we develop, discover in our life genetic? Or related to some defect with respect to biology of human beings? Because I've heard people claim such views and I've found that very confusing. Thank you for your time in doing this. Everything is genetic really. It has been found that in some cases pedophilia can run in families. But that doesn't mean every pedophile came from a pedophile family. Some just came out of nowhere. What would you say is the biggest misconception about people with this disorder? That they are ticking time bombs. They are not. They can become if people reject them though. Hello. I have 2 questions. 1. What did you study? 2. How did you get this job? I'm very interested in this subject and I at least want to consider doing something with it in the future as a job. Thanks in advance, smiley face. I studied clinical PH psychology and from there I expanded on sexologism and paraphilias. I got my job because well not a lot of people have the knowledge I have. Why do you think there isn't more early intervention style treatments for pedophiles? Do you continue to offer treatment after they have offended? What could society do to help curb pedophile rates? Because society views them as incurable, untreatable monsters that don't deserve anything. I have had British people who literally moved in Germany to get treated because the NSA wouldn't accept them. I have had some cases where somebody might have offended in some way in the past. In those cases, I try to help him build up his self-regulatory behavior to not do that again. If I can help the person not to do that again, then for me it's quite clear that I should do that. With the latest Jeffrey Espin scandal, it seems like it is safe to assume a lot of people with power and money dabble in this pedo pool. I wondered if this type of pedophilia was developed as the individual became rich and powerful and wanted to find more to control and hold power of the young girls. Or if these men were always pedophiles. If the latter, then is there some sort of genetic drive that makes these men as successful as they are? For reference, I just finished the podcast, The Mysterious Mr. Espin. Another good question. You might be surprised to learn this, but only 40% of child molesters are pedophiles. The majority of child molesters do it for power. Epstein was most definitely a pedophile though by the sounds of it. So are all rich people who meddle in this stuff pedophiles? Most likely no. Some just do it for power. You just distinguished between child molesters and pedophiles. I thought all this time you were talking about child molesters. So you're treating people who fantasize about sex with children, but don't have sex with them? Thank you for this interesting AMA. I thought I made myself clear that I mostly treat pedophiles who haven't acted on their thoughts and try to prevent them from doing so. I guess it's because people use the terms pedophile and child molester like it's the same thing. How should one argue with anyone advocating for pedophilia being a sexual orientation online? I've never seen pedophilia as a sexuality because children aren't a sex. Female, male, etc. These are sexes. You can be bisexual by being attracted to two different sexes. You can be heterosexual by being attracted to your opposite sex. But children aren't a sex. Therefore, pedophilia can't be counted as a sexuality. Is a pedophile's attraction to young children stronger than a typical man to a woman? Why is it harder for them to abstain from touching or doing something illegal as opposed to a man, let's say married, that is very attracted to a, let's say, colleague and just knows they shouldn't do it? If pedophilia is just a mental disorder that makes you see children attractive. Is not, I shouldn't do this enough for a pedophile to just not do it without seeking ways to control themselves? Very good question. For some, it's exactly as you said. They just say, it's not right, and carry on. But others though, can have hypersexual symptoms. You see, pedophilia and other paraphilias are related to high levels of testosterone. They are basically like sex addicts in a way. That's why a lot can be unfortunately addicted to child pornography. Some have intense and frequent fantasies which they can't control. It's not that they can't understand that it's wrong. It's that they are, well, too horny to think rationally. Are there any indications as to what causes this disorder? For example, I know that dissociative identity disorder is correlated with trauma between the ages of 8 and 12 because that's when your sense of identity is being built from a developmental standpoint. You've mentioned in another comment that there isn't a cure. Do treatments significantly reduce the symptoms or do they merely placate the overall issue? Are most of the patients you've worked with attracted to older children, 16 to 18, or younger children, 15 and below? There are no indications to how and why this disorder is caused. Some of us believe that there is no cause. It just happens. Trauma is associated. It's true. But it has been found that those people had already a genetic predisposition. There is no cure. And there will most likely never be one. Treatments, like chemical castration, do reduce a lot of their symptoms at the point they can almost live normal lives. Don't be mistaken. They are still attracted to children. Their sex drives are just very reduced and the constant fantasies some may experience fade out. The most common age range I have encountered is from 9 to 14. My question is about subcultures that focus on infantilizing women, such as the loli subculture, where adult women dress and act as little girls, or the adult baby fetishes, or even pornography where adult women act like children. Is there a lot of crossover in these communities for pedophiles and hebophiles? Do these types of communities help curb the fantasies of pedophiles? Or do they feed them more? Yes, they feed them more. Are there a lot of pedophiles that dabble in these communities, perhaps trying to curb their instincts? I would argue most of these people in these communities are pedophiles or at least have some form of pedophile sexual attraction. How do people react when you tell them about your job? This is a fine one. Some look at me with strange looks like I just told them I go around searching for kindergartens to sniff the seats. Have you considered coming to America to educate doctors on the condition to offer this type of therapy? This is a very good question. In America right now, the only help a pedophile can receive is from charities that unfortunately are volunteer-based and only accept people who are at high risk of abusing, along with some clinics that offer chemical castration. One of them being in Massachusetts, where a colleague of mine, Dr. Renee Sorrentino, works. The problem is that, unlike here where chemical castration is free, in the US the therapy is very expensive. Project Dunkefeld is based around anonymity. It's why we have been so successful. In the US, there exist some mandatory report laws that would never be able to work along with our philosophy. In order for something like Project Dunkefeld to work in the US, those laws must be modified. How old was your youngest client? I imagine that there are adolescents that have pedophilia. Also, Do you believe that signs of pedophilic tendencies should be taught in public schools alongside standard sex education? Very interesting question. I have never met an adolescent's pedophile before because Project Dunkefeld is only for adults. Programs like Dunkefeld, though aimed for teenagers, do exist and you can search them up. I believe parents should never put the possibility of their own children being a pedophile out of the question. As much horrible as it might seem. Too many times I have heard stories of parents catching their children doing questionable stuff and them just going, "It's just a phase," and carry on. Especially if pedophiles have existed in the family before. As of being taught in schools. No. How did you come to specialize in the area of pedophilia? Was it intentional, this is what I want to specialize in, or did you sort of fall into it as you went along in your career? I imagine there aren't pedophilia fellowships, like there are for other specialities, orthopedics, neuro, etc. This is an interesting one. I used to have the average opinion on pedophiles most people have. Then while I was studying to become a clinical physiologist, my cousin got busted in a child pornography sting. My cousin was my best friend during our childhood years. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. He killed himself 5 months later. This pretty much was my calling. How I got here. After becoming a clinical physiologist, I did courses on sexologism, and from there I specialized on paraphilias. What is your view on lolicon, shotacon, cub? Could this serve as a gateway to actual child porn? Is it just as bad or can be used as a harmless alternative to CP? Yeah, this is another one of those questions I was looking forward to. No, I don't think it's a good alternative. A lot of my patients started with this and ended up on the real stuff. Do you think viewing child porn helps to extinguish the fantasies and urges, or does it tend to escalate them? What has been your experience with pedophiles and child porn? Yes, this is it. This is the question I was looking forward to. In short, no. This is the exact mistake they make. They assume that if they just watch child porn everything will be fine. What they don't realize is that they are actually making themselves worse. Child porn is like meth to them. They get addicted to it and it's harder for you to help them then. You say that a lot of the way they are the world might have genetic and hormonal components. What kinds of psychological support do you offer that enables them to go against those elements? Do they come in to protect children or to protect themselves? Chemical castration is effective for the ones who are hypersexual. They come in to do both.